Before we get started, I wanted to introduce some of the Caltrans members involved in the development and launch of the Broadway pop-up demonstration. So I've already introduced myself. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Joseph Caminetti.
Yeah, hey, Joseph Caminetti. I'm the Complete Streets Coordinator for District 1 here in Caltrans, and I helped with the preliminary design of this, and it's gone through some refinement through other people, but yeah.
Great, thanks. All right, how about Alexis?
Good evening, my name is Alexis Kelso. I'm a Senior Transportation Planner here at District 1 and the SHOP Complete Streets Advisor.
Thanks, Alexis. And Brad.
Good evening. My name is Brad Medham. I'm the Deputy District Director for Planning and Local Assistance in Eureka for Caltrans.
Brad. Thank you, Brad. And Miles.
Hey, everybody. Miles Cochran, Public Information Officer for Caltrans District 1 in Humboldt and Del Norte counties. Happy to be here.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, well, let's go on to the next slide, please. All right, so this evening's agenda, we did introductions. We'll do a little housekeeping after this. We'll go through an overview of the Broadway pop-up demonstrations. We'll go through the location and features and just kind of give everyone a lay of the land in terms of what we'll be installing and where. Your involvement, the community's involvement is going to be extremely important in the success of this and the data that we want to extract from this test. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can all be involved to create that data and those results and feedback that we're looking for. And then we'll close the meeting with some Q&A. So anyway, I think this should probably, I don't know, be about 20, 30 minutes. And then the last half of the meeting, we can answer any questions that anyone might have. All right, let's go to the next slide, Joseph. All right, so housekeeping. If everyone could remain muted when not speaking, and that'll just help reduce background noise. I don't do very well when I've got background noise going in. So in the interest of me doing well tonight, let's stay muted. If everyone could raise their hand when you do have questions, and I also am going to ask if we could hold questions to the end of the meeting during the Q&A session. If you are participating on the phone and not via the WebEx online on a desktop or on your mobile, but just if you dialed in, you can use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. And then to raise your hand, you can use *3. And as I mentioned before, this meeting is being recorded. It will be posted online. So I'd also encourage you, anyone you know that either wasn't able to make the meeting, or someone that you don't see on here that you think would be interested in this information, we'd also ask if you could please share the link, which is the BroadwayPopups.com. And if Alexis, if you could throw that in chat if you haven't already, and share that link. And after this, probably within a day or two, I'd imagine the link will be, or the recording will be posted. All right, next slide. All right, this is our Title VI non-discrimination policy statement. Pretty standard for most of our meetings. But essentially, in the chat also, Alexis will put a link in the chat. You'll find a link to the survey for Title VI that will ask about race, gender, nationality. The survey is completely voluntary, and we collect these surveys for kind of the following reasons. Federal Highway Administration will not fund or replicate ineffective programs, and without the data, we're not really able to prove any program's usefulness. So the race and ethnic data collected from the survey will allow us to assess whether or not Caltrans is meeting its goal and being an inclusive department. And if you have any questions regarding the survey, there is a phone number there. You can contact at our Office of Business and Economic Opportunity, or at, there's also an email, and maybe Alexis, you could put that in the chat as well, which is title.vi@dot.ca.gov. And then the next slide is actually a QR code to that survey. So I'll leave this up for about 20 seconds. If you do have a mobile phone and you want to participate in the survey that way, you can simply use, I think, most phones camera apps. If you hover or point that at the QR code, it will pop up an option to click a link to go to the survey. So we'll leave that up just for a moment. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so into the background on how we've gotten to this plan to install temporary improvements on Broadway. Back in early 2021, the Eureka Broadway Multimodal Corridor Plan was completed, and that was a partnering effort by Humboldt County Association of Governments, the City of Eureka, and there were multiple stakeholders, both public agencies, as well as the community that was involved in that. So there was a pretty massive public outreach that was involved in the development of that multimodal corridor plan. And it really had a focus on creating multimodal connectivity on Broadway, improving safety, reducing congestion, and also creating a sense of place. And from that multimodal plan, you may have seen, outputs from that in terms of projects and efforts within Eureka. There's been a number of construction projects that have already taken place and completed that have made ADA improvements. You may have noticed those on the whole stretch of 4th Street that was recently completed, as well as on the more southern half of Broadway. We do have more projects coming down the pipeline. We particularly have our South Broadway Complete Streets, which between Papa and Barkley and Truesdale will actually be installing a bike lane, and we'll also have enhanced and improved pedestrian crossings at intersections. You may have noticed, while not live and active yet, but you may have noticed a new pedestrian activated signal right near the Broadway Cinema property on Broadway. That's an exciting feature that we were able to get added to a project and installed in short fashion. Currently, we're waiting on PG&E to provide our electrical service to that pedestrian activated signal, and we expect that to be going live soon. And then we're also studying, the couplet in terms of we've looked at options for extending what we call a couplet between 4th and 5th Street, where northbound and southbound traffic are separated and they don't share the same roadway prism. And, in the past, we've looked at, and there's been a lot of discussion even years back where Caltrans purchased right-of-way, I believe, along 7th Street and looking at a potential bypass for 101, through Eureka. But that is long gone, and the feasibility and the likelihood that were to ever come back in terms of a feasible option to look at is slim to none. So we're really challenged, and it's upon the department to work with the community to really look at how can we improve our existing infrastructure, which is the roads that we have out there today, and improve them across all the facets and needs that they have. Multimodal being a key one, and safety for, I would say, our most vulnerable users of the facility, pedestrians and cyclists. So we are continuing to study features such as that as well to address those concerns and needs. Let's go on to the next slide, Joseph. So that brings us to our Broadway pop-up demonstration. The conventional way of project development is, the department, whether it's a collision history or community feedback or, various other causes that initiate a project on our state highway system, we go through the planning phase, we go through the environmental phase, we go through the design phase, and ultimately we get to a set of plans and a project that we put out to bid. The contractor builds it, and it's there permanently. And the only real way to change that is to go and, rip out what we put in, which is, obviously a significant waste of taxpayer dollars. The pop-up demonstration is something new to the department and pretty innovative in that we can actually go out and test certain improvements before making them permanent on the facility. This allows us to really study and understand the effects of what a permanent change might have. It gives all of you and the rest of the community that use the facilities something to interact with, so we can receive feedback based on real experiences rather than concepts. And based on that feedback, that data, and those experiences, we can then make adjustments to what we would make permanent in the future. We sometimes do this via traffic modeling or simulation, but this is a great kind of real world, on the ground, just temporary construction of improvements that is low cost and not a waste of dollars to really make sure that what we construct permanently is meeting the needs of the community, meeting the needs of the facility. So that's really the intent behind testing some of these features. All right, we can go to the next slide. So next, I just want to cover kind of the four key or the four types of temporary improvements we'll be making out there that you'll notice on Broadway here soon. First one being traffic calming lane closures. So there are a number of acceleration deceleration lanes, and for example, at the Papa and Barclays property there on the southern end of Broadway, the old Kmart, there are deceleration acceleration lanes coming in and out of that property. We'll be utilizing channelizers to prevent vehicles from utilizing those acceleration and deceleration lanes to provide more of a narrow feel to the roadway, which in essence has a traffic calming effect for traffic to try to slow speeds down. We will not be doing that at all acceleration deceleration lanes, and after this, Joseph will actually be spinning through the layouts to show everyone exactly where we'll be installing each of these features. Next are curb extensions. We also call those sometimes bulb outs. You've likely noticed these exist on 4th Street and on 5th Street. And so we'll essentially be extending the curb face at these intersections where crossings exist today. And this also has a traffic calming effect to narrow the roadway prism, has the effect of slowing vehicles down, but also will provide a shorter crossing distance for pedestrians. Next are median refuges at potential future pedestrian crossings. So essentially what we'll be doing where we have a two-way left turn lane on Broadway, we will, for small segments, channelize and block use of the two-way left turn lane for certain segments from vehicles. I do want to iterate that this will not be utilized during the pop-up demonstration as a pedestrian crossing. They're simply for us to learn and be educated on how vehicles will interact with them. And not only vehicles from the community, but also an important piece of this is how emergency responders will react and have to change their behaviors as a result. Emergency services within Eureka commonly use that two-way left turn lane to move through traffic. So we are engaging with them to also understand how we might be able to design these and not impact their response times and services. So these could be potential future crossing locations, but they'll simply be so we can witness and understand how vehicles will interact with them and how it will affect vehicle flow. And then lastly, we'll be testing a Class 4 bikeway. So this will be a separated bikeway from the traveled way with some sort of a soft barrier similar to what you see here in the picture, likely some sort of like a plastic bollard that will be attached to the roadway with a buffer zone between the bike lane and the traveled way. So anyway, those are the four types of improvements we'll be testing. I believe next will be Joseph spinning through the actual locations of where these will all be installed. So I'll turn it over to you, Joseph.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I'm going to go ahead and exit the presentation here and actually switch over to the pop-up demonstration website. So this is the website here, and on this page you could find this Google map where we have actually identified the locations, the rough locations of where these are going to go in. And so that's what I'm going to spin through. So if you hit this button, it pops up in another window, full screen. Starting at the south end of Eureka by the Herrick Avenue kind of interchange here. The first thing we're going to be testing is putting in some flexible posts along the shoulder. That's what these white dots are. And they gradually, as you move northbound, get closer and closer together. The intent with that, and also with these median islands here that you see in yellow, is to try to provide a traffic calming effect as people are entering town and also exiting as well. But the main focus is on entering town to try to slow people, as they come in and make them realize they're entering, coming from a freeway environment to a city. So that's the intent of that, and the median islands you see in here. We're at the Pop and Barkley intersection here, and these white dots along the shoulder and kind of wrapping around to the entrance to Pop and Barkley are indicating the closures of those acceleration and deceleration lanes that Jeff had mentioned. There will be enough room there for bicyclists who are using the shoulder to get around these, and there will be room for vehicles, large vehicles like trucks, to still be able to make their turns. But again, we're trying to simulate closing these because at a signal, you don't necessarily need to have the acceleration deceleration lanes. You can wait for a red light or just slow down if you're in the mainstream of traffic and make your turn. And so we want to test the effect of that. And the space would be given to non-motorized users. Continuing north, you have another median island, again for traffic calming, near the Sunset Memorial Park. Continuing further north, the next feature will be located all the way near Hillficker Lane. It's going to be a median island. This is to represent a potential location for a pedestrian crossing, which would have a pedestrian activated beacon like we have installed down by Broadway Cinema currently. Again, this is not intended to be actually used for people to use during the, to cross Broadway during the demonstration. It's merely there to simulate the effects of traffic on this location, including the emergency responders. Moving further north, you get to McCollins Avenue. We have a bulb out here on the corner. All three other corners of this intersection are fairly well tightened up. And so this corner is very wide, and we want to see the effect of tightening that up. Now we're at the Southern Bayshore Mall entrance. Again, just like Pop and Barkley, we're closing the right turn lane and the acceleration lane. The unique feature here and why this is colored red is we're actually going to, and we're coordinating with Humboldt Transit Authority to move the southbound bus stop that's currently located at McCollins here temporarily to this location at McDonald's, just to test if it's a better location for people using the transit system. Transit riders will still be able to get off and get onto the bus at McCollins Avenue, the current bus stop, but they'll also have the option now to get off here during the demonstration at McDonald's. Moving further north to the northern Bayshore Mall entrance and Harris Street. This here is a large bulb out. The intention of this is in the future, there will be a connection for the bikeway on Broadway to the bike lane on Harris Street. Also, there is proposed sidewalk infill along Broadway on the northbound side where there's currently no sidewalk existing. So here is, somewhere in here anyway, is a location for a pedestrian crossing to get from the sidewalk on Harris Street to the sidewalk that would be filled in on the northbound side of Broadway. Currently, Harris Street, as many of us probably know, kind of acts like a freeway off-ramp where people drivers don't have to slow down very much to make that turn. And so the idea with this island is to really channelize vehicles and have them slow down before making this turn onto Harris. And that way they would be slowed down if there was a pedestrian crosswalk here. And also trying to slow down the speed along Harris in general for that bike lane. Moving further north, you have another bulb out at Bayshore Way on one of the corners. A bulb out at Henderson, which can be achieved because of the switch in traffic from not having to turn up the hill and everything. Everything's coming downhill essentially, and so we don't have to worry about right turns from Broadway onto Henderson and being able to make that anymore. So we can fill in that with a bulb out and shorten the pedestrian crossing. Moving further north, the next location is near KFC, which isn't on this map, but marker is for it. This is another location for a potential pedestrian crossing in the future. We get to Hawthorne Street. So between Hawthorne and Wabash is where we're proposing to install Class 4 bikeways temporarily. The Class 4, like Jeff showed in the presentation, has the vertical post separating traffic from the bike bike users. And this just increases comfort and safety for the bicyclists and enhances visibility of the bikeway. The reason we chose this section of Broadway is because Hawthorne is kind of a low stress connection and it has a signal so people can get across. If they're testing one side, they can use the signal to get across and come back. And Wabash has bike lanes up and down the facility. So it's a good connecting piece for us to test it at. Part of that will be also temporarily closing some driveways. So these ones are fenced off anyway, but these will be closed. And one of the driveways at this property will be closed. Everything else will remain open. Moving further north, we got a bulb out at 15th, small one. A bulb out at Cedar. A bulb out over by this intersection with Clark and Broadway and this kind of alley here by the Rescue Mission thrift store. And then a couple bulb outs on 7th, Commercial, and 6th Street. And that's all the features. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share the presentation again and pass it back over to Jeff.
All right, great. Thanks, Joseph. So now I just want to talk a little bit about how you can all get involved and also how you can encourage all your friends, family, and anyone you know as well, pass the word along to get involved. So number one is, we need the community to interact with the pop-ups. So, even if well, let me step back a moment and talk about how long they'll be installed. These will only be in for approximately 4 weeks. So they will be up for a very limited time. So if your travels don't take you out to Broadway after they're installed, you want to, we'd encourage you to go out and just interact with them and use them and give us that feedback. Right before they are installed, and I'll talk about timeline in a moment, we will post a link to the survey on the BroadwayPopUps.com website that Joseph was just on. And we encourage you to take that survey, give us your feedback. That feedback will be used as we shape what permanent changes we might make and proposing permanent projects that we develop in the future. And we are looking at developing projects in the very near term. So I would say these things that we're testing are not long-range hopes, but very near-term improvements that we're trying to make on the facility. You'll also notice this picture here on the slide, what we would call like a sidewalk sticker. We're making these, and these will be placed at various points near the various features we'll be installing. And they'll simply just kind of have the title of what that particular feature is, a little bit of information about it, and then there'll be a QR code where you can scan that and learn a little bit more about that particular feature. So there will be a little bit of an interactive element to it as well. I think that's all I had for how to get involved. Let me talk a little bit about timing, following up on the 4-week time that these will be installed. So right now we're coordinating with our contractor to find availability in their schedule to get them installed. We're hoping that this occurs at some point in July, but we don't expect it to occur any later than August. So in the next week to 2 weeks or a little longer, I think you'll start seeing some things installed out there. We do expect it to be relatively quick. We're told that it should only take a matter of days to get all these features installed. And also pay attention to our social media pages on Facebook. I imagine we'll probably do a post once they are installed, updating the community about that. I'm not sure if we'll do a press release, but maybe, Miles, I don't know if you could speak to that. Can we do a press release to announce that as well, just to give the community a heads up?
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's what we're here for as PIO, is to answer people's questions, connect people with the right folks. So reach out to us anytime, and we'd be happy to put that press release out too. Okay, great. So we'll coordinate that and be sure that we get notification out to the community on that.
All right, well, with that, we're to the Q&A section. So as I mentioned before, if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. If you're using a desktop, it's near the mute and the video features. You'll see a little hand you can click. I think if you're on mobile, it's pretty evident. Then if you're on participating by phone, you'd simply press *3. And then if we call on you, go ahead and hit *6 to unmute yourself. So I don't know if Alexis, you see any hands up. I've got share screen mode, so I can't see all
MK has his hand up or her hand up.
Hi, I'm Michael Kraft. I actually work for Papa and Barkley. I wanted to ask you one thing about the left turn coming south. So I understand about the acceleration and deceleration lanes being closed down for this period. Does anything you're doing affect that southbound left turn lane with the light?
No, there should be no impacts to that. I'll let Joseph confirm that, but I believe there are no impacts to the southbound left turn.
Yeah, that's correct, Jeff. There's no impacts to that.
All right, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
No other hands at the moment.
We do have a comment in the chat that says, please put reader info boards on both sides of Broadway, giving the web address to give opinions.
Okay, noted. So maybe we can add some language that directs them on the BroadwayPopups.com website and mentions the survey can be found there.
And Joe has his hand up.
Yeah, quick question. I saw that when this call was initially put out there that there might be some median closures in front of the Broadway Cinema near the new pedestrian crosswalk. I didn't see anything about that on this call. Is that something that's still being planned for this July layout?
You mentioned near the Broadway Cinema?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not, I don't know, Joseph, if you want to go back to that area. I think the only thing that's recently happened near the Broadway Cinema is the new activated crossing. I don't know if, Joseph, you want to pull up that section. I can't recall where the nearest two-way left turn lane closure is, but it looks like there's nothing immediately in that vicinity.
Yeah, Jeff, and I can speak to that just a little bit more. I think we originally had it in the pop-up demonstration plan. It was going to be, simulating how, basically we have a hybrid beacon up there now that's not activated, and we were going to simulate it, before that was built. And now it's built, so there's not, necessarily the need to simulate that. So we removed that from the project scope for the Broadway's pop-ups.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, well, hearing none, Joseph, I think we've got one more slide just with contact info and website. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm Jeff Pimentel, project manager here in Caltrans for District 1. The whole entire project team has access to this email you'll see on the slide there, broadwaypopups@dot.ca.gov. So that is actually another way that you can provide feedback to the team, whether the survey isn't addressing a certain concern or type of feedback you want to provide, but you can always feel free to use the email as well. That is an email that we all get. And then for more information, similar to what we covered tonight, the layouts, the survey, while not posted there yet, will be there at the BroadwayPopups.com website. So with that, I thank everyone for attending this evening and giving us your time to share this exciting and a new approach to project development for Caltrans. And I think we'll follow up and try to get notification out to the community once these will be installed or once we have a firm date on once they'll be installed. So I encourage you to go out, interact with them, give us your feedback, because you can really help shape the future of Broadway and how we enhance multimodal safety on the facility. So thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.